This is it. It all ends today. The tiebreaks of the World Chess Championship 2016. Match score was 6-6. So Magnus Carlsen, the reigning world champion, and the challenger Sergei Karjakin went to the tiebreaks to find out finally who will be the new world champion. So let's get started. They played 4 games of rapid chess, that is 25 minutes per player and 10 seconds increment per move. That is, with every move they received an additional 10 seconds on the clock. So I will go through all the games they played. Let's begin with game number 1. Karjakin with the white piece started with e4, and as we have seen so many times in this match, Roy Lopez on the board, Karjakin repeating his games from the classical match, and Carlsen once again playing a new move in the match. He had played knight a5 and bishop e6, and here he went for another move, knight b8, regrouping his knight. Both players playing natural moves here in the opening, and we're coming to a critical point very soon. So far this all makes a lot of sense what both players are doing here. Now Karjakin took on e6, black could take on e6 with the queen, but then c4, and you could argue white has a little bit of an advantage here, having the better bishop on e3. So Carlsen took with the f pawn. Now d4, this typical break in the center. B takes c3, B takes c3, takes, a lot of pawns are coming off, and this is the critical moment of this first game. Here Karjakin took with the knight, but bishop takes d4 would have given him a little bit of an edge. The point is that if Carlsen now plays like he did in the game, rook b4, then white has this move available, bishop c3, just pushing this rook away from b4, and it just doesn't make any sense to play rook b4 in the first place. And after other moves, let's say knight takes d4, well then the knight is coming to b5, which is a beautiful square. And also the black pawn structure is a little bit weaker than the white one, with black having more weaknesses. So bishop takes d4, the better move to play, and white will keep a little bit of an edge. The problem with knight takes d4 is, which is obviously a natural move, but here rook b4 is a good move. It targets the bishop, and the rook's very active here, taking control of the 4th rank. Karjakin played rook ec1, queen d7, and now bishop c3, but now we see this pair of pawns coming off, and major exchanges follow here. Rook a8, now also the second pair of rooks come off, and we get to this position in which white has a little bit of an optical edge because he has a better pawn structure and a safer king, but it's just not enough material left to do anything, and the game petered out to a draw pretty soon. Let's go through the last couple of moves. Carlsen finds a good plan here to activate his bishop, bring the bishop to b6. Right here, threatening checkmate. With this active bishop, really, white cannot do anything. Queen d5, queen takes d5, knight takes d5 was, and the draw was agreed because, well, not a lot of material left, nothing to do. So Carlsen holding an effortless draw with the black pieces in the first game of the rapid tiebreaks. Let's go to a second game. Carlsen this time with the white piece, and he started with e4, and once again we see this opening. Actually, we didn't see this opening too much in the match, just once, but Carlsen the Italian game. And I just activated Siri.
I don't see any hours for Tigran Metz and Karl Marx stress. Clean Mac now.
That's interesting. All right, let's keep going. Castle, a4. We all had seen this in the match as well. In the match, Carlsen played b4, but now he went for a different strategy. Bishop a7. h3, knight e7, d4, all of this has been seen before. Knight coming to g6, now c6, now bishop 1. This apparently surprised Karjakin a little bit because here he took a longer think. And he played the move a5, which is curious to me. And I think a natural continuation like rook e8 or maybe bishop e6 would have been better. a5, now it takes on e5 and queen c2. Bishop e6, knight c4, and the knight is quite well placed here in c4, hitting e5, hitting a5, sometimes even threatening to go to d6. Queen c7, now b4, good move by Carlsen, grabbing some more space on the queen side. A takes b4, A takes b4, b5. Karjakin is holding his own here. And knight e3 played, but white has a little bit of pressure here, certainly. Now we see b takes a4, rook takes, and bishop takes e3. And Karjakin spending quite some time on these moves to figure this out. Now, bishop takes e3, also rook takes e3 was very possible. Just taking back with the rook, and white keeps a nice advantage with the bishop pair here. And not a comfortable position for black at all. But Carlsen spotted this idea, bishop takes e3, and sacrificing this pawn on e4 and going after a pawn on c6. So we see this position on the board, rook c1. Now bishop d5 defending the pawn, b5. And now Karjakin played c takes b5. In any case, his position is uncomfortable, but c5 probably the better move. But still, white has a strong pawn. He can play bishop c4, and black really doesn't want to exchange this bishop. Bishop b7, now bishop d3. Why did you insert these moves? With the bishop on d5 still, black could play queen b7. Now that's not possible, the knight has to move. White will regain the pawn, have a strong passed pawn here in b5. Not an easy position to play for black. So Karjakin decided, okay, I'm going to take this pawn. First it looks like black is winning material here, because rook takes c7, b takes a4, and black's up 2 pawns, but Carlsen had spotted this move, very nice tactic, queen takes e4. Now if black takes on e4, white is up a piece, so queen takes c1, counter sacrifice, but now white doesn't take on c1, but takes on d5. And we see this position, and white is up. Well, white is not up material, but white is 2 bishops against the black rook, and great winning chances here. Because also another pawn will drop. Queen c7 back, and now queen takes b5. And in this position, Carlsen is better here, clearly better. He can press for a long time. He can try, and Karjakin also being down to 2 minutes versus Carlsen's about 12. So things are looking really dim for Carlsen. For Karjakin, of course, for black. Now we see a couple of moves, and white has all the time, can repeat moves here. Now it goes to a2, h6 played, queen comes back to d5. White has many ways to play here, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the individual moves. Maybe here h5, h4 was another move to play. Carlsen goes bishop d3. And Karjakin wants to take off the queens here to alleviate the pressure, because especially with being low on time, he has a hard time defending this. And without the queens, still a hard time, but at least you don't have to worry about being checkmate. Carlsen tries to keep the queens on the board. Bishop e4, but now queen e6, once again chasing the queen. Still, Carlsen doesn't want to exchange. Now knight e7. And now Carlsen goes into his endgame, plays queen takes e5. Another option would have been to go knight g5, when black cannot take because of this continuation. And here white is winning. So probably black would need to go queen c4 when after bishop h7 check, black cannot go to h8 because this pawn is hanging. After king f8, knight e4, white keeps the queens on the board. I think that would have been another very decent option. So we get into his endgame, which is very difficult for black, but might be holdable. But for a human, you don't want to play this. You really don't want to play this as black as a human. I mean, the computer might hold this, but for a human, very difficult against the 2 bishops here, even though it's equal pawns on one side of the board. So let's see how this continued. Karjakin just tried to set up a fortress, just says, okay, I'm just going to wait, let's see what you're doing. And well, Carlsen of course tried. Of course he did. Every reason to try this position. Coming in with the king, and we get to this position. Here black could play g5, but Karjakin said, okay, I don't see how you will make progress, I'll just wait. And Carlsen said, okay, I do have an idea, I want to bring my king to g6, what are you going to do against it? And here in fact Karjakin makes a mistake. He plays rook d7. He should not have allowed a king coming to g6. King h7 was the way to go. And if white goes actually via this route, now it looks like king g6 is unpreventable, but black can play g5 here and then put his king on g7, and I believe he should be able to hold this. Not easy though, not easy. After rook d7, bishop c2, now you cannot go king h7 anymore because the king moves with check, picking up the rook. So instead Karjakin played rook b7, and what I have to remind you guys here, the whole time Karjakin is playing with less than a minute, sometimes 30 seconds, and he is just living on increment, getting these 10 seconds per move. And also Carlsen being down on time as well now, didn't have much time left anymore. So this was incredibly exciting here to see if Carlsen could pull off the win. So Carlsen goes for king g6, giving the pawn on f2. And a good decision. This is winning. This is winning. He plays all the right moves here. Bishop d6 with the idea bishop f8, bishop takes g7, which is a very strong threat. Rook e2, but here he needed to play king f7 to win. He played bishop g4. After king f7, once again, same idea. Bishop f8, rook b2, bishop f8, check, king g6 goes back. Now bishop f7 is the threat, followed by checkmate. So black has to give this pawn to have rook b6 check after bishop f7, but now just bishop c5, carrying b6. And for example, after rook c7, bishop d4, black ends up in Zugzwang. Rook b7, for example, now just bishop f7, there's no check, and this will come next move unless black gives the rook, but then he can also resign as well. So best move here is to go h5, but now white just picks up this pawn and picks up this pawn, and white will win here with the extra pawn, even though it might still take a while, but this is the way to go. So Carlsen missed this chance to go for win and play bishop g4, but still this position is not easy to defend for black, even though it should be a draw now. Especially not if you're low on time, as Karjakin was, as both players were at this point. So incredibly intense situation. So we see a lot of rook moves here, and now g4, rook c6. So far, Karjakin is doing a great job defending this position, as difficult as it is. But here he plays an innocent move, rook b7, and then he's lost again. He needed to play something else. King h8, for example. There are really a lot of nuances here. You want to be able always, after bishop e6, to attack this bishop, to have rook c6. And the problem is that after rook b7, now Carlsen did not find a winning way. He played bishop d6. But if bishop e6 and now bishop f8, now white is just winning, because bishop f7 is the threat once again. We've seen this already. And f5, now it's even a worse version for black because of a g takes f5. Rook a7. Yes, bishop f7 fails to rook a6, but white has this nice move. First f6, creating an umbrella. The black pawn is now shielding the white king from checks. And after bishop f7, black can resign. He has to give the rook. And this is the correct bishop for this promotion square for the pawn. And white wins. So Carlsen missing another win, playing bishop d6, king h8. Just moved the board there, but okay, that's still looking good. Bishop f8, king g8, and here once again he had the chance to win, but this is much harder. He had to go bishop c5, and then, for example, a sample line could go rook b8, bishop e6, king h8, h5, very beautiful. And the point is that after rook a8, once again, black's in a kind of Zugzwang. So this is just very difficult to find, of course, over the board, especially if you're low on time. But here, g5 is just gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you just have to agree. F takes g5, bishop d4, and black cannot prevent mate in a sensible manner. And if h takes g5, h6, g takes, and bishop e7. How nice is this? White is giving up his 2 pawns, but black has no sensible way to prevent checkmate. But Carlsen missed it. He played the bishop all the way back to a3, and the game continued like this. But here he did not have another chance to win. He should have tried king g6 here, because after bishop e7, now Karjakin found a way to force a draw immediately. He played h5, good move. The point is that after g takes h5, f5, bishop takes f5, Black can just give up the rook and he has a fortress here, or rather white can't make any progress anymore because this bishop is the wrong bishop for this promotion square and white cannot win. So the game ended in a stalemate here. After h6, g6, stalemate, draw. So incredible save by Karjakin. Incredible save, being low on time, having a worse position that is so hard to defend. And Carlsen had several winning chances, but he missed it. So incredible that it was still 1-1 at this point. Let's get to game number 3. Karjakin once again with the white piece, and he repeated his opening from the first game of these tie breaks. And Carlsen didn't repeat knight b8, but went knight a5, what he also did in the match in game 2. Bishop e6, but Karjakin had prepared something new here. Instead of going d4 as he did in game 2, he went b4 and is going for this, and this is an interesting position, actually quite similar to game number 11. But after knight d4, now not in the style of game 11, Karjakin went for a different move, knight g5, very interesting. Bishop takes d5, e takes d5, and we get quite an imbalanced position here, obviously with the pawn structure being not symmetrical anymore. Knight d7, knight e4, and here Carlsen plays very interestingly and aggressively, plays f5 and f4, and saying, well, I might have some attacking prospects against the white king in future here. So now Karjakin pushed the knight back from f5, from d4 to f5, and he played knight e4. The knight looks pretty on e4, but I think actually it's better placed on d2, and white should immediately go for this plan of playing bishop b3 and going a4. The difference is, if black plays in the game here with queen e8 and queen g6, white can just go knight f3, prevent knight h4, and it will be difficult, or it will take much longer for black to make progress here, pushing the pawns or creating any threats against the white king. In the game of the knight e4, queen e8, bishop b3, knight queen g6, now there's the threat of knight h4. So white has to go f3, which is really not a move you necessarily want to play because it's weakening some squares here. But white had to. Now bishop h4, this is just great play by the world champion. The bishop goes to h4 and then the knight goes to f6. And here the bishop is just having more of an impact, and sometimes the even idea is to go to g3. Now queen e2, and just tremendous, magnificent play by the world champion. Now, after he has played so many times, so many moves on the king side, now he unleashes a5 playing on the queen side as well. The point is to free up the square on d4. A takes b5, a takes b4, rook, bishop d2. Yeah, if white takes on a8 and b4, then black gets this square on d4, and you just look at the white pawn structure, it's just wrecked. So bishop d2, b takes c3, bishop takes c3. Okay, white has covered the d4 square, but he has given the e3 square, which is an equally nice square for the knight. Rook fc1. Now rook takes a1, rook takes a1. Just once again, really strong play by Magnus, now playing queen e8 back, hitting the pawn on b5, forcing bishop c4. Now king h8 and threatening to take on d5. And here, I didn't see anything better than to take the knight on f6, which is definitely an accomplishment for black because the knight was just well placed on e4. Here Carlsen took with the bishop. G takes f6 would have been also a strong option to have this g file available for the black rook. Also quite uncomfortable position for white. But Carlsen had spotted an idea. He wanted to go bishop takes f6 and go e4. Rook a3 was aimed against this idea of e4, but Carlsen just played it anyway. It's a beautiful positional pawn sacrifice. Because now all the dark squares are weak and this knight will stay there forever. You cannot exchange it anymore. Queen e5 played. Now rook c1, rook a8, and just look at the black pieces here. They're all active, and once again Karjakin was low on time. Just like in game 3, low on time, difficult position to defend. Better position though than the last game, but still not a pleasant position to play. In fact, instead of rook c1, queen d2 would have been a better choice, but it's not easy to play. It is really not easy to play these moves. The computer can do it and can hold this position for white easily, but as a human, different story. So rook c1, rook a8 played h3, h6. Black's in no rush to do anything because he has complete control over a position thanks to his superiority over the black squares, over dark squares. And now queen d4. And here Karjakin goes wrong. He plays queen e1, hoping to exchange queens with queen c3, but that allows the black queen to become even more active. He needed to do something else. Bishop d3 was possible, or even the counter sacrifice e5 to open up this diagonal for the bishop and put the bishop on e4. That would have been actually quite nice. But he went queen e1, point being that black shouldn't take on c4 right now because of queen b4, winning back the piece, and white is completely fine. But it allowed queen b2, threatening queen takes g2, now bishop f1, and that's another mistake. He should have gone bishop e2. When after rook a2, he has this miraculous save going e5 and creating counterplay here with the pawns, and a possible variation could go now queen takes e5, now b6. Now black cannot take because of rook c8 and queen b1, picking up the rook. So c takes b6, rook c8, king h, excuse me, that's what I just shown. That's what I just showed. Queen g5, that's the line I want to show. Queen f2, and now black can win the bishop, but he has to give back the knight for the pawn. It comes to this rook endgame, which white can probably hold. So bishop e2 was the way to go, but being low on time, like I said many times before, this is difficult, and then naturally mistakes creep in. Now rook a2, knight takes g2 being a strong threat. There's only one move white can play here, which is the move rook b1, but Karjakin did not play it. He played rook takes c7. After rook b1, white can probably still defend, I mean, for the time being, but with the rook on the second rank, this is also just very tough once again. And probably Carlsen would have won there as well, but after rook takes c7 was really easy. He just played rook a1, picking up the bishop next move, and here Karjakin resigned. So Carlsen takes the lead 2-1, coming back in a tremendous fashion after a psychologically difficult game that he didn't win in game 2, now winning with the black piece. And that means in game 4, Karjakin needs to win with black to level the score. Let's have a look. And for the first time we see something else here than 1 e5. c5 is the fighting weapon, is the way to go if you want to win with the black pieces. And what do we see here? 5 f3, and I think that was a nice preparation by Carlsen, a rare move, but a very solid position for black, for white, excuse me. Because here white is getting this grip over the center. And this is all theory, has been seen many times. And here Karjakin took a thing, then he played the move knight a6. During the live stream I pointed out bishop d8 as an option to go bishop b6, but maybe this is too much. Maybe white can take, but you need to take risks anyway. You need to create unbalanced positions and maybe sacrifice material because you need to win at all costs, of course. Bishop e6, the main move here in this position played, but probably Karjakin didn't want to allow knight d5 with simplifications, and will be a difficult position to win. So he went knight a6, but what happened was that he just found himself in an inferior position. Here, rook b1 is a nice move, preparing b4 and pushing the knight back from c5 if white wants to, but actually Carlsen played differently. Knight d3, keeping the b4 square open for the knight, and here white is just in complete control. Just a beautiful position for white. Karjakin doing his best to still create chance, playing h5, h4, good decision. And maybe best here for white would be to go knight bd5, Carlsen went queen f2. Knight bd5, now black cannot allow this knight on d5, so he takes. And just play knight a4 here. White has very nice control over the whole position, and you wouldn't ever imagine Carlsen losing this. After queen f2, knight d7, black suddenly is threatening to exchange the dark squared bishops, and then there will be some holes in the white position. And here Carlsen played g3 to cover the f4 square. And now Karjakin went for a think and he played rook a3, which is the wrong plan. He needs to go bishop g5, definitely needs to exchange these bishops. He needs to have entry squares on the dark squares, go to d4, maybe have ideas with knight f4. And this position really is not that clear. I mean, white is better, but this is far from clear. You have the square available possibly. You have some play against the white king because it's a little bit open. I mean, yes, white is controlling still the position, but anything can happen here. Certainly black can have chances. In the game of the rook a3, bishop h3, which was another idea of going g3, Karjakin tried to find play on the a file, but really nothing is happening here. And he just worsened his position than improving it. Here, Carlsen repeated moves, and Karjakin has to deviate, play rook a5, because a draw would mean Carlsen wins the tiebreaks and wins the match. Now he had to play b6, only way to deviate, because there's the threat of b4, b5. And now Carlsen just improves his position, just complete control once again, and so difficult for black to create any chances. Here, Carlsen took an h4, wins a pawn. Personally, I wouldn't have done that necessarily, because it gives black the option to go knight f4, but Carlsen looked at his position and said, okay, this is still very solid, very good for me, and I'm a pawn up, so he went for this. Knight b4, rook a3, knight takes c6, queen takes, knight b5, and here we come to another critical moment. Black can still try by playing rook a1. And this is not a draw or a win or anything clear yet for white. I mean, white is better, but as long as the queens are on the board, as long as this king is a little bit open and weak, black definitely has chances. Best move here, in fact, is king h1, which is not a simple move to make. You also want to go out of any possible d5 ideas, and it's just a useful move, but not an easy move to play. But Karjakin, once again being low on time, and we had seen this throughout the whole tiebreaks, that Carlsen was just playing much quicker. Now you place rook takes b3, which is just a blunder. I mean, I don't know what was going through his head, but here he gives the exchange on b3. Well, black just never has any chance to win this. So now, of course, the game continued, but it was pretty much clear that Karjakin would need a miracle here to win this game. White's just controlling everything here, not allowing the rook any entry squares. Now rook d5, queen d2, rook f5, and rook c1. Every exchange helps white, being material up, so black avoids it. But now queen takes f4. Queen takes f4, rook takes f4, bishop g5. Doesn't win back the exchange because of this intermediate check. So Karjakin tried rook a2 check and queen f2, rook c8, king h7, and suddenly it looks like black will checkmate here. And during the stream, I thought white has to go rook g5, overlooking it after rook a1. White is just lost. But Carlsen had all figured it out, and he finished this game in style with this beautiful last move, queen h6, check, and it is checkmate next move no matter what black does. G takes h6, rook takes f7, or king takes h6, rook h8, checkmate. So Carlsen wins the tiebreaks 3-1 in a very convincing fashion and is the new and old world champion. There was never ever any doubt about it in the playoffs, in the tiebreaks, because Carlsen was never worse there. And he won very convincingly in the tiebreaks and is the new and old world champion. Congratulations to Magnus Carlsen. Tremendous effort, tremendous game. And he truly played like a world champion in this final playoffs in these tiebreaks, showing his best chess, especially game 3, was just so impressive. But you also have to give Karjakin credit. I mean, nobody expected this match to go to tiebreaks in the first place. Karjakin was even close to winning this whole thing. Before game 10, he was leading. So he put up a great fight, showed that he's one of the best defenders in the world, and he can be quite proud of himself, of the way he presented himself in this match. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the coverage of the World Championship by me, all the analysis, and also I live streamed yesterday. In case you want to check that out, you find a link in the description so you can re-experience the whole tension, especially game 2 was just dramatic. You can watch it there, and if you enjoyed my coverage, then feel free to subscribe to my channel so you are notified in the future when I do live streams, videos, and all of that. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this recap of the games, and talk to you very soon. Goodbye.